Innovate. Accelerate. Move technology forward. The startup revolution is now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to first introduce myself. I'm Pauline Kisao, the Growth and Content Lead of No Code Journal. It's an online magazine about no code and low code. I've been exploring this amazing space since pandemic and made a few no code projects. I am one of the panels for this afternoon suggestion. So I'd like to also introduce the other two panels. So first is Nico Garrido. He is the founder and CEO of Dorsata. He was also part of the founding team at Integromat and Make, learned low-code tools to power every aspect of his first transit startup, and served 50,000 rides when COVID changed and the landscape of transportation. He pivoted to helping the other companies leverage thoughtfully designed low-code solutions. Hello, Miko.
Hi, thanks for that intro. Yeah, so I guess a little bit of information about Dorsata. So just like Pauline said, we help other companies leverage no code, and we can talk about a little bit of like the value that that brings to those organizations. But I'm just really excited to be here today.
Thank you so much, Miko, and happy to discuss with you today. So another panel would be Louise, is the product lead of Beauty Buddy, she's a top-rated freelancer on Upwork and a Bubble expert. Her passion in low-level programming, art, and design, these skills enabled her to develop robust and thoughtful web applications for her clients. Hi, Louise. How are you?
I'm Lois. So I'm currently the product lead of Beauty Buddy. Beauty Buddy is a solution for it's a SaaS enabled social discovery platform that digitizes operations and drives discovery for the beauty and wellness service industry in Southeast Asia, starting with the Philippines. So I've been working with them since I think April, and I'm still freelancing on the side. So I started my no-code journey since November 2018. My main tool is Bubble, and started freelancing during the pandemic. And I have helped a lot of startups bring their MVP to life and really build the digital ecosystem of businesses.
I am very glad to meet you both. Before we begin the discussion, I am just curious. I would like to ask these two questions. When did you first learn about the term of no code and low code? And what was the first tool that you used and the project that you were able to come up with? Let's begin with Nico.
Okay, cool. Actually, Lois sounds like she had an answer already. I'm thinking, so you can go for it.
Okay, I can go first. Since I already mentioned a while ago, I started doing no code in November 2018. So I didn't know what no code is before that. I only first heard about bubble.io. Um, so it was IS at that time, bubble.is. So I I didn't know about no code yet. It wasn't really a term yet. Like it wasn't popular yet at that time. And then when I first heard it, it felt like finally a solution to my problem because I'm a programmer, but I'm a computer engineer. I don't know web development, and we were starting company. We needed to learn JavaScript and HTML and CSS, and I only know the basics of those, and I have no idea how to build a web application. And when I found out about Bubble in a forum, um, I checked it out, and it it helped us build our first product. It's a crowdfunding platform, and since then I was building apps already in Bubble.
That's very amazing. I think you're a pro on using the no-code tools. So let's hear it from Nico.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I learned about no code the same year, I think, or 2018 or like very late 2017. It was so at that time I was working for, or actually I was working for another company called Magic, but so I was in their product team, and I was starting my own company called RideWave, or at least like contributing to building out like the actual technology product. And none of us were coders. So I'm not like Lois, where I started as an engineer. So I really started out in product and operations. And then I slowly moved over to learning how to build my own products. So I used Integromat when it was a very, very early stage. And Chat Fuel when it was also extremely early stage. These two products don't look anything like they do now. And then I really took a deep dive in when I joined the Integromat team. So they saw the work that we did with RideWave, and they're like, "You seem to really know this tool. Why don't you join us? Help us get other people on this platform." So I eventually got hired by their team, and then eventually left them to kind of start an agency of my own in no code. So it was really Integromat and Chat Fuel.
Very interesting. Your both stories are different, and well, to share mine is first, I don't have any coding knowledge as well. I didn't also know about the term of no code, but I am familiar with WordPress. But I believe back then, early 2000s, it is not yet associated with the word no code. So that's the platform where I build my own personal website, since I can personally edit it and made myself instead of hiring a developer with a high cost. So I only encountered the term no code and low code with Manish. He is the founder of No Code Journal. It is a US based online magazine, and after learning about this amazing movement, I got interested and start exploring. And so, yeah, I'm very happy to hear stories and journey, especially with Filipinos, because through my experience, I've been talking to other people from all over the world. So, yeah, moving forward, let's get into the discussion. And basically, our discussion is about why should Philippine startups care about no code and or low code here in our country. So my first question would be, I've read a lot of articles about the prediction of the future of no code, and one of which is Gartner's prediction by 2025, 70% of new apps developed by enterprises will be used will use low code and no code resources. And personally, I believe that it has a lot of benefits. Um, if we will be applying it here in our country, why do you think we should or startups and small businesses should go no code? Let's hear it from Mika first.
Yeah. So I just to kind of start, I don't actually think 20, like that whole 2025 70%. I'm no expert in like the statistics of no code, but I have worked in the adoption and growth of a no-code product. And yeah, so I feel like custom engineering and no-code both have their own space. And to kind of fully disclose, right, Dorsata does both. So our company does both custom engineered solutions and no code, and a lot of the times the in between, which is low code, right? Like that's like a term that a lot of people in that space are familiar with. So I don't think it's going to replace like a significant or like an amount that significant, but it sure has its own place. And I think like your next question kind of flows very nicely into what that place is. So it's a good place to verify ideas and just get like a product out there to market as quickly as possible, right? So we know that trying to get your product out in front of a customer as soon as you can to get that crucial MVP feedback is a really, really important part of trying to identify what company or what product is you want to build out. And I feel like no code helps people who don't necessarily have engineering, right? So like the entry role said 0.3% of the population can code. So it allows literally the other 99.7% of people to pick up a tool, build a product, get it in front of a customer, get it in front of a user, and then get feedback. And yeah, the Philippines, I think, can especially benefit from that since we're moving our economy towards technology, right? There are sectors of the economy that haven't necessarily embraced that yet. And so having no-code tools will allow them to get products out there without having to spend like 6 months, a year trying to learn how to code, or spending a lot of money relative to their budget on a developer or a product manager or project manager. You can just build it literally by yourself and then get it out in front of a customer. So there's a lot of magic, I think, in that. Yeah.
For me, I think it's a big number, 70%, but it actually might happen because it just says how much product would be pushed out. Like, let's say there are 1 million products being tested out by enterprises right now. It can be multiplied by a lot because production cost and time would be so much lower. And you can try out multiple different ideas quickly with no code or low code. And 70% of like 30% would still be coded. And I think it might even be less because the first few steps, I think, if they release it first as an MVP in no code, a lot of it would be rejected basically. So a lot of it won't even become code because they tested it out, it didn't work out, and that fear of testing and failing would be less and less because the cost and time to test out ideas would be less. And I think that's the beauty of it, like being able to really test, iterate, improve. Like that's really where no code would shine. And like once you hit that ding where a product works and you transfer it in a more stable, more powerful, more robust platform where you start coding it and such, then that's really like how I see code and no code would go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm. I both understand your perspective. So mine is first, the technical skills. Of course, not everyone has a technical or coding knowledge, and it is not, in my perspective, it is not something that you can easily learn. Like you can just search it on YouTube. It's for me, it's very complicated to understand, and looking into when I have an idea and I wanted to like start it like for a website. I think I can, or anyone can do it. And at the same time, I wouldn't worry about hiring a high cost or a very expensive developer. And at the same time, it's very time efficient since right now we are living in the fast-paced generation. And at the same time, also considering the factor of everything is shifting into digital. And whenever, as a freelancer as well, if you have if you are looking for a client will always be looking for a website, and it is something that no code can help you or help anyone to build it on their own with less and time efficient. So thanks for your answer. My next question is, can you share any frameworks or methods on validating a startup using no code? Who would like to go first?
There's actually lots of ways. For me, I think starting with a very simple one where you just get to test like the simplest kind of validation you can get out there is a survey. And just that's the first step really to see if somebody would like the idea. Like it's not even an MVP yet, but it's just testing out the idea if it's even valid to make an MVP for that. So and then so like starting with that survey, you can already plan out which features would be of interest to your customers so that you can really focus on what's valuable because it's the most valuable MVP product. That minimum, sorry, is it most valuable? Anyway,
It's minimum viable.
Minimal viable product. Sorry, minimal viable product. And the minimum viable product, you should really get to the heart of the problem in the simplest form you can get. And to get really the problem, you need to ask people and get comments. So I think that's the littlest, smallest thing that you can start.
How about Nico?
Yeah, well, so I have some experience with this. Like it's how I got into no code. Is there was a product that I wanted to build, that I wanted to validate. So I've done this already, and I'm actually doing it again. So our agency is building a new startup, to kind of, and it's an inbuilt project. In both cases, I found it really helpful to just cobble together something you can put together over a weekend, right? So think about like a problem that you have, a problem that you think exists, and it's really good, especially if it's a problem that you have. That's not like necessarily a requirement, but if you are your own user, then that's like a major win because you can just ask yourself at least over the weekend to give yourself a weekend to build something out very, very quickly. Don't worry or fuss too much about the details. Try to keep your features minimal and really just addressing the core problem. Make sure it's not too polished, right? So resist the temptation to make it nice. Just make it usable, make it something that a user is going to try for you, and then try to get someone to use it. Yeah, I feel like that's a really quick way, at least, right? It's going to take a weekend and then maybe a week if you find your first user, literally just your first one, to use it, sit next to them when they're using it, like figure out a way to try and get as much information about that user's experience, and also if your product is solving a problem for them, and then you can go from there, right? And that's kind of like, again, I always like to go back to that's kind of the magic behind no code and low code, is you can do it over a weekend with literally no coding experience, and then bring it in front of a user, and then you suddenly have like feedback on your MVP. So yeah.
Yes, that I'd like to back up both of your answers. First thing, my answer would be researching, because sometimes people tend to forget to research. I mean, they would be able to identify the problem, but they are skipping the research part, wherein because sometimes there are also the same ideas that are already in the market. And for me, it is something that they should also study to to identify what are the gaps of those published ideas in the market, so that their product would be unique at somehow. And I do also believe with what Louise said, feedbacks are very important, since these users will be using it. My question would be, next question would be, can you provide some tips on founders or builders who are just starting out with no code and low code? Because I believe there are a lot of no code platforms right now, and sometimes it's very overwhelming where to begin. And at the same time, the other problems of no coders are some tools aren't
As friendly.
yes, as friendly, and it's sometimes complicated, or their idea is not compatible to that platform. Can I ask first, Louise?
That's I usually talk to founders who have ideas, and for me, the most important part is planning and determining where you're going. So, um, you should really have an idea first of what you're trying to build, and not just like, I want to end world hunger, but how? So most of the clients that I usually have or would inquire to me usually have that I want to do this. And then I usually help them fill in the blanks of how to do that. But they really need to think about them that problem themselves. Like, how would they solve it? What solutions are they offering? Because at the end of the day, it's really their unique input that would matter, that would like offer a different point of view or different attack on that problem. So really, it's really to just plan and talk to somebody who has that problem, because sometimes we're just imagining the problem. It doesn't really exist, or the problem is not exact, like it's just the tip of the iceberg, and they haven't really gone to the proper or a different point of view. So um my suggestion really is to just build a user story of what they want the user to experience when they use the product. And then from there, they can check out what tools already exist that addresses um, those steps. For example, if they want to have a management tool, what management tools are already existing and why can't that be the solution? So like really research first, and then once they find out that, oh, maybe the management tools doesn't have like this connection to a specific feature, and then look for that feature too. And then that's like no code, it's like Legos for me. They're like Legos. So each feature is a Lego brick, and then you just try to look for different bricks to build together that whole structure. And then once they have that, try to put them together, and then have it tested. And the the faster they can have something on the hands of the customers, the better. So it doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't need to be like super well made. They really need to validate first the idea, because they don't want to be spending too much time on a fake problem, um, or a problem that doesn't really exist. And by doing proper research and having it tested immediately, they could skip a lot of heartaches and time and money lost from from those. So Miko, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree, right? Like having a product out as soon as you can is really important. I think my experience as a founder uh, of a startup, so before Dorsata, and then also now after that we have a startup. I think the most important thing about like getting started in no code is just starting.
Yeah.
So pick up something. And honestly, I give this recommendation so often if someone's trying to learn like how to build something is
Just
just
do it.
yeah, just like roll a dice. Like, but if you really can't decide, just flip a coin. Webflow, Bubble, right? Like Integromat, Zapier, like it's all gonna do the same thing. There are gonna be limitations, but if you're starting out, it's very unlikely you're going to hit them
Yeah.
because I mean, you're starting out, right? Like you're not exactly building like the most complex product ever. If you are, then if you're trying to attempt to build an extremely complex product like yeah, a self-driving vehicle using Bubble, then you're maybe then you should like rethink, yeah, and start like a little simpler. And also another kind of I feel tip that I can give is um, you can start building something for yourself, and it doesn't necessarily have to be an MVP even. It could just be something fun, right? Like a little game or a website explaining an anime that you really love watching, right? Like, and it can have pages for each of those seasons, and then link to like the Netflix like link of that particular like episode. Or it could be a website that you kind of build out for yourself, and a CV, right? It'll give you a really good experience because when you build a CV, what you're really trying to do is sell your capacity to a company, and it could be a good exercise in conversion design, right? Yeah, I think my advice when you're starting out is forget the product for a second and just focus on
Mm.
yourself as a founder. And think about, okay, like I just want to make something right now, and it'll take me maybe like 6 hours, right? To put together the worst version of a thing that works, because then you can make that into something that's nice that works eventually. So yeah, also just another big thing is keep timescales in mind. So try not to spend 6 months on your personal project or an MVP unless that's what you want to do and you really want to take your time. Because more often than not, the market is going to get a run for your money and move on
Yes.
without you, right? So you just if you have an idea, you think it's cool, build it. Get the shitty version out as soon as you can, and then yeah, get that in front of users. But before you even do that, build something and get it in front of yourself, and see if you like it. And if you don't like it, then you can just make edits and you don't have to ask anyone. And that's kind of the most powerful feedback loop. So
I just want to also add that we made that mistake in our startup. We were focusing too much on the idea of it. And so much of it is on paper, so much of it is an idea and how much it would solve the problem we are trying to solve, of how perfect it was and all that. And
yeah,
then it took a long while before we really got to have, like, to really build the first product. So since there was a lot of pressure for me to learn a programming language, since I'm already a programmer, that should be just easy. So I had that pressure on myself. And then when I learned no code and we were able to like have a product in 2 weeks, we were able to get a lot of feedback immediately compared to like the how many months? Like 3 months, we were just thinking about it. Like literally, we were just thinking about it. We were not even talking to the users that we are targeting. So that's one of the stuff that I feel that we did wrong in our startup. That's why it never flew. And I agree with just trying out something and with what Miko said, that just have a small project to just um, basically to push your inertia. So physics, the inertia when you're not moving is so high compared to when you're already rolling. So that inertia, you just start out with something that's really interesting, or something that, for example, you just want to make a to-do list for your mother, or just a small, tiny project that you want to do, like I did one project that's basically makes you bet. So you will put a bet, and then after 2 weeks, and your friend will put a bet, and then after 2 weeks, you will get an email of what you both entered, and then whoever got the correct one wins the bet. Basically, it's just like a very simple timed email, and for some people, that's their first project, and it's really just a simple thing to get you started.
Yes, I believe, I don't know if founders are just overthinkers or and perfectionists, but I do agree with both what you have said. And my answer, my advice would be, try out several tools that would fit for your knowledge and your skills, and depending on what you are building as well. But I would like to follow up a question about what Louise said about planning, because I believe most startups are having hard time during the planning, and they tend to overthink and be perfectionist about it. Can you please expound or give us some tips or pointers for startups to indicate into their planning method or planning section, so that they would be aligned to their idea?
Would you like to start, Miko?
Yeah, well, honestly, typically I'm not a huge fan of planning.
Planning.
Like, I think that it gets in the way of a lot of products. So I think really important is to realize that your idea is not a product. It's in your head, and like a million other people have it right now. The exact same thing. Like, you always have like someone that you're talking to, or maybe it could be yourself in the situation where you're like, oh, I totally thought of that. Like, I thought of that like a month ago, and now it's a product. That's actually happened to me so many times where I'm thinking of a product and I'm like, it would be cool to do that. And then like 6 months later, I hear that there's a company doing the exact same thing that's raised money. Um, and I also recommend in those cases, when you see someone else creating your product that you thought and they're having success in it, pursue it even more rigorously, right? Because it means that there's a market for it, and don't be afraid of a bigger competitor, right? So when my first startup, the one that served the carpool rides across Metro Manila, especially to like the CBDs, our competitor was Grab. So like, if you're picking a competitor, that's a competitor, right? Like, I remember going up, I think it was Ignite, the startup conference, and going up to the stage and then just like talking about how I think we're better than Grab because of these reasons. And our product was a chatbot that booked you rides, that you could pay for your rides over Messenger. You could book it, you could get notifications, and you don't have to install an app, right? And it was built using Integromat, but we didn't get too stuck with the details of like planning it out, right? It's just, Grab is too expensive. I think people can ride in more carpools, obviously before COVID. Like, how do we get that out to the market right away? So don't get too bogged down by planning. Do things more on impulse. Honestly, if trust your instincts, because if they're wrong, you'll find out very quickly. No one wants to use your thing, right? So then you move on. So just try to get into that cycle, right? Like, make your planning longer than a week, basically.
How does Dorsata like build out, so basically the step of getting the idea from the founder into a product? Because from my end, it's very difficult to get from an idea to a product if there is no plan at all. So I guess this is more of like, if you're starting to really build out the product and trying to get that idea from your head into a product and into something that users can basically use, how do you extract that from them?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just to clarify, Dorsata doesn't do that. So I'm talking specifically about my experience as a founder for RideWave, which is before Dorsata, and then Go Remote, which is now what I'm building now. And so whenever we have someone who comes in and he's like, hey, I'm a founder and I have this idea, we're like, no. We work with enterprise and we work with medium businesses. We don't build people their products because you should be doing that yourself, right? If you're a founder, do not outsource the development of your product. That's why no code is so powerful, because it'll let anyone do it. You don't have an excuse to not do it yourself. Yeah, like that's typically the advice I give, especially if you have a client who comes in and he's like, I have this idea and but it's not real yet. Then I'm like, all right, then you can go make it real. And then I suggest that. So for Go Remote though, the planning, I think it doesn't mean don't plan, but it just means don't get into planning. Like planning is a phase. It's something you sit down and do for 3 hours. You know, it's a task in building out your MVP. So don't make it the, hey, we're in planning phase. That's not a thing. Or don't make it a thing. You're going to be stuck there for a long time. Yeah.
So for me, my clients are usually startups, actually. So since I'm a freelancer, I really try to get their ideas from their head, and that's really how I assess if their product will get out there. And most of the time, it doesn't. But I still spend like up to an hour sometimes talking to them, just helping them rack their brains regarding their idea. And basically at the end, after that call, I know for sure if this product will work, or their startup will somehow work, just because of our conversation. So it's really mostly in the founder, or like if they have built it out in their head. It's not just like a single sentence idea. They like have this road plan already mapped up in their head, but they just haven't brought it out yet. So if you're still in the stage where you're in the single sentence idea stage, then you probably should do more planning. But if you're in the stage where you have so much stuff running in your brain, it's better to start doing it already. You need to get that idea out of your head and into the hands of the users. And I guess my first step would be identifying who the users are. And after identifying who the users are, try to talk to some of them and ask them questions. Ask them if your idea makes sense. Ask them if basically the solution you're thinking about would address the problem, or even if there really a problem, like and then from there you can already have some kind of feature list of what to do next and just build it. And that's where it's important that you need to stop somewhere. You need to stop planning somewhere and start implementing, because if you're just planning and planning, then you're just, I don't know, planning. You're not building something. You're not building a startup. You're just planning.
Yes, I also believe that startups, you are it's not a bad thing to have a mistakes. It's actually an opportunity for your product or your service to improve. And I'm very I happy to that you have discussed it, because most of the startups will be watching this video. For my next question is, why and how will no code and low code disrupt the Philippine startup scene?
It's gonna put out a lot of products quick. It's gonna enable a lot of people to try things out, and not just from college kids, even from high school, or from the moment they can understand logic and basically read, they can already do something. Like the age where you can start your own startup would be drastically lower if this was introduced earlier. Like um, this teaching how businesses would work and how people can make their own solutions to their own problems and building it out themselves. If this was introduced like in elementary, in high school, it would bring out so much. And this time you don't need to learn programming. Like that's the whole thing about no code. That's really magnificent for me. So I have a 3-year-old, and I can't wait for the time where I can basically teach her how to use these tools, how to um, make her solve problems that she feels important for her. And having more products out there, at some point we will hit something that would really um, help other people, like the friction of just trying out. Like if people are less scared to pursue something, then there's gonna be a lot more um, success stories out there, because they're not scared of their failures, because failures are just basically steps for you to succeed, right?
Yes. How about you, Nico?
Yeah, I like what Lois brought up about age. So Dorsata is a team of about 15 people, um, and the oldest person is, I think he's over 40, and the youngest person, we hired him very recently. Very excited about it because he's 18. So instead of going to
Mm.
college, he decided I'm going to join a design and development firm to learn like things. Um, and there's like everyone in between, so we have a very like good spread of like different ages, different backgrounds, different demographics. So I think that the disruption can really occur at any point in like demographic distribution. Your other question about when it's going to disrupt, I definitely don't think that it's 100% there yet. I think that so, for example, with Webflow, which is probably one of the biggest kind of players in the space, there are only 3 professional partners, and so we're one of them. And there's no enterprise partner, and we're hoping to become the enterprise partner. So we're currently in the process of becoming the enterprise partner. But I think we're going to be the first in Southeast Asia to do that. So it's really, I think, like, and also with Integramat, when I was working, so I was primarily responsible for growth. We had almost no Southeast Asian, or at least Philippine users. So it's really quite not there yet. So I don't know. I don't see the disruption happening like in the next year, but it might be in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, and I think for sure by like four years from now, when we look back at this recording, you're gonna have a ton of products that are built on no code. And for example, my current startup, Go Remote, is actually one of those, right? Like we're building it completely on no code on purpose because we want to leverage our agency's resources, right? So I'm not gonna have to pay for it. But yeah, like it's really interesting to see just the full range of demographic variants that can kind of come in and help you build your product if you're using no code. So yeah, if you're a startup founder and you're having a hard time finding a technical co-founder, and that's like one of the biggest things, right? It's, oh, we're looking for a technical co-founder. Try picking it up yourself. It's gonna be a lot easier than it looks. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree as well. Maybe I'm thinking when no code will be integrated with the schools or education system here in the Philippines, it would be possible because I encountered he's a professor, I think, in one of the universities, and he is already starting teaching some no code tools. And I believe since we are still in a pandemic, somehow business there are a rising numbers of startups, and we are turning into digital. So it is a very great idea if it will be associated or integrated with our within the schools here in the Philippines.
For me, even just target college first, college students, or
Yes.
even the junior high. I think junior
Junior
high
high.
is because they have like the specific tracks where they're interested in.
Yes.
It can be introduced in all of the tracks because um I really think like learning how to code is like learning how to write and read. And given no code, it's really I really feel like it really should be like that. It should be that basic that you can think in how to use different tools in the internet to solve a problem. And it should be like that general, like if if only we can just get there really quickly. And right now I think I'm not sure even the if the startup ecosystem is already using no code. um
Oh, they
I mean
are.
the
There are
are
some
they
companies
really
that are, yeah, like and actually some Philippine startups that got into Y Combinator used some no code in their,
mm,
yeah. So there, I think the most popular I'm seeing is using Webflow for your marketing website.
yeah.
So like I think there's at least I know of a few. I was about to name drop them, but maybe I shouldn't do that. But I know of a few that are using Webflow for their marketing site, which is really exciting.
Mm.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
actually Flow and Bubble for the app themselves. So that's where I they hired me first as a freelancer, and um, that one is really like I really feel like they're really one of my best clients because they're really very hardworking, and how they do sales and marketing is very impressive. How they really attack the specific problem in the startup. They are in a different, like, it's not um it's not the idea stage of the startup anymore. They're in a part where they're really trying to grow, trying to get more customers, and um even starting um the coded site already, because we are getting that much traction already that we needed to move out of no code because we are really reaching the limit of bubble, for example. So yeah, I guess I also want to add that no code, it's not the end. You eventually
Mm.
really need to go back to code. So if you're a coder and you're listening to this and people are saying that no code is gonna replace code, it's not gonna happen. It's like AI replacing people. It's not so far, so far. Imagine
Right.
like AI replacing people. That's if you have tried doing coding in AI or machine learning, you will learn how really far we are from robots taking over the world.
Yes, I believe in that too. We're down to the last question. If the future is no code and low code, how should startups utilize its power? Let's go here first to Nico.
Cool. Yeah. So I think if yeah, since no code and low code are going to continue to get more adopted, I think focusing. So for if it depends on like which stage of the startup you're at, but let's talk about maybe a startup that's already got a product that's already got users. So for focusing more of your energy around designing around the limitations of that no code tool, right? So there are these like features that you want to push out, but you also want to take into consideration like the tool that you're using and the limitations that it has, and designing really cleverly around those limitations, especially while you're still trying to build up a cash flow that can support like a full engineering team. So don't get too frustrated if like Bubble doesn't do this or Webflow doesn't do this or Integromat, or Zapier can't like perform these functions. Don't get too frustrated over those things. Put them down in your, future to do, and then work around the user problems that you can identify that you can already solve with the solution you have at hand. Obviously, you have to not do that if it's like a really critical part of your growth strategy, or if it's a really critical piece of user feedback. But I think for the most part, it's not going to be. Most of the things that your users are going to need will be answered by a no-code solution up until maybe when you're ready to raise money, or if you're profitable and you have some cash flow.
Yes. How about you, Louise?
Sorry, what's the question again?
The question is, if the future is no code and low code, how should startups utilize its power?
Get to know the tools out there and learn how to use those tools. There's a lot of tools already, and sometimes you would feel like it doesn't exist yet, but for sure it already exists somewhere or in some kind of shape or base. Like, it's, you just need to like know the essence of what that feature is and try to look for it. It might be being applied differently in a different industry, but you can adapt it. And then if there's an API for it, use the API. There are many tools out there. Get familiar and don't be afraid to use them, especially in the start. Is like most of these API are usage based, and you might be scared, like, what if we have 1,000 users and we need to pay this much? That is if you have 1,000 users. And if you have 1,000 users, that's a good thing. You probably are earning by that time.
Yeah.
So, like, don't think about the future too much. Like, it doesn't have this. It's gonna cost too much if we have so and so number of users already. If you have so and so number of users already, you are so good already. Like, sorry, there's a cockroach. Anyway, so I was saying, if you already have users and you need to spend so much already for those users, then think about it then. But while you're not yet there, make use of it if it will shorten the time of getting the product out there. Make use of what's already been built than trying to build it yourself. That's what no code is for. No code is expensive if you put it in a big scale, but if you're really just starting out, it's really cheap than trying to build a coded platform that eventually will go down the drain if it's not really tested.
Right. I actually really love that your input on, like, what if I have 1,000 users or 10,000? And I'm like, son, if you have 10,000 users, you're not talking to me. Like, that's a great point. I think also maybe something that has always been part of like the startup ethos, right, is something that Paul Graham said, the founder of Y Combinator, which is do things that don't scale, especially at the very beginning of your journey. And it also really helps me to kind of, when I'm working or I'm walking, I like to listen to the journeys that some startups have had, like Airbnb or, other companies that like really did things that don't scale. I think in the modern context, contemporary context, the fact that we have no code is such a powerful thing, because sure, it doesn't scale, but it can scale quite a bit. Like it can bring you to 10,000 users probably, or 1,000, or maybe even 500 is already a considerable number of weekly active users. So I just want to echo Lois's point. Don't think too much about the future. Like, I think worry about itself. You need to get to user number 10, then user number 50, user number 30.
User number 1.
Yeah, user number 1 first and foremost.
I have had so many clients who have 0 users, and they're so stuck thinking about, what if I have 1,000? What if I have 100? And I was like, chill. We're not yet there. We don't even have 1 user yet. So just relax.
Yeah, I think also another thing, just from like a more concrete, maybe some people who are watching this afternoon are thinking, like, where is that limit though? Like, can I feel more confident in no code? So back in 2018 or 2019, we brought RideWave to, I think we served something like 50,000. It's been a while, but it's something like 50,000 rides using Messenger chatbot and Integromat, and no code, as in literally nothing. So it can take you there. Just get to your users, and the no code platforms are mature enough where they can bring you to that place.
I agree to you both. And for me, I wouldn't argue with those coders out there. And I also believe that your job will not be replaced by no coders or no code and low code, but it is for people like me who doesn't know, and I don't have any plans to learn how to code, because it is very. I tried, and it was very complicated for me to learn. And I truly believe that no code is for someone who is looking for an alternative tool, alternative tool, especially when creating website and applications. So it is, for me, the keyword of no code is solution, and as well as it is an alternative for everyone or anyone who needs it. So yeah.
I just want to add to that, Celine.
Yes.
You mentioned that it's good for people who don't know code, but it's also so good for coders, because imagine having a piece of code that that usually would take you 1 week to build, and you can do it in 1 hour, or
Yes.
even less, or even just like it's just literally one click. Like, imagine having that power in you, and also the power to modify parts of that already built solution. Like, imagine if you can, if you have like a car and you're a mechanic and you can improve that car. It's basically, it's kind of like that. So if you're a coder, don't be a no code snob. I know a lot of people who like, no code, that's would roll their eyes at me because I'm an engineer who does no code. Like, it's not so bad. It enables more to be done in less time. And um try out those platforms. Try inserting your code here and there, and see how fast and how magnificent and how magical things can be, because you can combine this tool that even people who have no idea what code is can build. And imagine if you put it in the hands of somebody who knows how to code. Like, you can really build a lot.
Yeah, I love that. I keep echoing Lois's points, but I love that that you said, right? Don't be a no code snob, right? If you think that it doesn't answer the question, it might be answering the question for someone who doesn't know how to code, and that's great. I think it's the same thing with like using Canva for making like images, right? So just because they can't use Photoshop doesn't mean that they can't make something that their users or their customers or whoever their audience is can appreciate. I think there's also like a certain caste system in the no code space, and I call them template snobs. So they see something that's like builds on a template, they're like, oh, that's like, yeah, you built it on a template. And I'm
kind of like that though.
sorry, what was that?
I'm kind of a template snob, but not really because I don't like templates, but because when I need to modify them, and especially when the templates are not well done.
I think at an agency or like professional scale, they can be a little limiting because we don't need them, right? We can already build those things. But if you're out there and you're looking at the blank bubble page or a blank Webflow page, don't let those voices don't let our voices get to you, right? Because we're obviously going to.
I want to add, I learned Bubble because of the free template that I got. So I didn't build it from a template, but I learned a lot from the template, because when there's something that I don't know how to do, I check the template. And how is it being done
Mm-hmm.
on this template? I copy it from there, and then that's how I eventually learned. Like there's this thing that I can follow, I can understand. Like it's basically it's kind of a manual that that can help you like copy step by step for you to understand how to build it. So yeah, I totally agree. If it's in a template, as I said, the first if it can bring your product faster, use a template. If the template encapsulates a big chunk of what you're trying to build, then just get it.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of power in receiving that kind of help. Yeah.
I would just like to emphasize the templates. Maybe some of our viewers aren't familiar with the term templates that we are talking about. So, no code, for example, Webflow, it has a pre-made template that you can edit based on your needs or how would you like your website to be viewed. And that's one thing about no code is that these platforms has a templates that you can use for now and then edit it in the future if it is no longer appropriate to your idea or doesn't match your idea. So yeah. Do you have any other thoughts before we wrap up our discussion?
I'm all good.
Okay. So to wrap up our discussion, kindly please provide one key takeaway for those who aspire to start a business using low code. Um, I'll go first. Based on what we said earlier, maybe if you are on the early stage, don't overthink it or be perfectionist about what your idea is. Start start building it in a no code, and then improve it once you have identified your problem and your target audience or target market. So who would like to go next?
I think I got an answer for this. So I feel like yeah, again with the maybe I'll take like another um, part of the life cycle. So when you have your first users and you're using no code, try not to think too much about how do I escape this this platform. Like how do I I have my first second or my first two or my first three users. How do I like move this out of bubble, or what do I do when I get to 1,000? The no code tool is probably going to serve your needs for quite a long time. And obviously there are going to be some edge cases, but try to see how far you can kind of push your features out and really bring a lot of the focus onto your users. So what is their experience of your product? How far is it solving the problem that you set out to solve for them? And then iterating based on the feedback that you get from them on how you're solving the pain points that they experience. And also just the gaps in the market for a product like yours to flourish.
For me, think of no code as Lego blocks, and sometimes the Lego blocks that you need isn't there yet, but you can still use the already existing blocks, and you can just focus on building that specific feature that's not yet out there. If it has to be coded, a lot of no code platforms out there are you can connect to it. You can still use it without having to move everything into code. So you can have like the whole UI in no code and only part of the back end in code, like the essential part. For example, if you're trying to build like a AI something and machine learning something, you can't do that in no code. For example, in Bubble, you can't do that in Bubble. There are no code out there that does some ML and AI. I don't know yet if they can do it, but if you are knowledgeable in creating that backend in code, or know someone who can do it, and um, you feel like you need to have the whole structure already migrated into code, you don't need it yet. You can connect it. So just think of it as Lego blocks, and then think that you have a 3D printer that can build out blocks for basically the 3D printer is a coded whatever, but you can still use it. You can still connect it, and they are just tools. Coding is a tool. No code is a tool. Um, if you can maximize the use of that tool to serve you, then do as much as you can to really use the most out of it.
Thank you so much. Can you please share your social media accounts or website for the viewers to follow you or visit your company website or your personal platforms?
Yeah, so
So for
our website.
I
Oh, go for it. No, you please.
I don't have anything. I only have LinkedIn, so you can check me out on LinkedIn. If you want to hire me, I'm on Upwork as well, and that's basically it for me.
Yeah,
How
so
about you?
our website is dorsata.com. So that's DORXATA.com. And we're also building, I'm the co-founder of a startup built using completely no-code tools right now. It's called GoRemote.ph. So we're helping people who are here get remote work internationally.
So be sure to follow their social media or website, visit their website. Mine is nocodejournal.com. And you can follow me on Twitter, Pauline Ann, because I provide latest news about no code and low code. So give a round of applause to our panel. I enjoy learning from you both, and I hope our viewers also learn something new about what we discuss and implement it on their startups or inspire them to push through using no code and to consider exploring this as well growing movement of no code. Thank you so much.